Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing a recent decision by certain legal aid lawyers in Alberta to vote for some job action in that province related to what they call chronic underfunding of the legal aid system. Now, Danielle, I really want to focus on the role legal aid plays and the role criminal defense plays in our justice system. So can you explain why regular Canadians should care about legal aid and maybe what our justice system would look like without legal aid lawyers?
Certainly. Well, our Canadian justice system is premised on due process, fair representation, and good representation to the extent that people who require services through legal aid and all people that require our services have experienced, knowledgeable lawyers who are not overworked and underpaid and struggling in their own lives to find the time to represent these people in a very, very busy schedule, because we become overworked when we have to take on way too many files. So why should Canadians care about that? Well, as the Crown prosecutors indicated when they were lobbying for raises, you get to a situation where you are overworked, underpaid, overwhelmed, you have no supports, you have no access to mental health supports, and you burn out. What happens when there are no defense lawyers? As my friend Mr. Savage indicated, it becomes China. There is nobody to protect the rights and the due process of any individual person that goes before the courts, whether they are a criminal with a criminal record as long as my leg, or whether they are somebody who is entering the doors of a courthouse for the very first time, sometimes facing very serious charges and having no idea how to navigate the system. So without legal aid that provides counsel for people that would otherwise not be able to afford a lawyer, the system will essentially collapse in and of itself. The increase to the overall cost of the criminal justice system will exponentially increase, because the number of hours required for a self-represented file in court is significantly higher than the same file where you have a lawyer representing the defense or the accused person. So the savings by having a properly funded legal aid system are significant. There are savings not just to legal aid itself, but to all other aspects of the public purse.
Ian, let's take a step back for a second, because I think a lot of our viewers might not understand how legal aid works. So how does someone qualify for it? Is there an income threshold, and how flexible is that? And what types of services are available in legal aid cases?
Certainly, it varies from province to province. Many provinces have a publicly funded legal aid program whereby it's all staffed by lawyers employed directly by legal aid. Our province in Alberta is not that. There certainly are a significant number of lawyers employed by legal aid that do a fair amount of work, but most of the work in the criminal justice system for defense is done by private lawyers like Danielle and myself, who take what are called certificates or a contract from legal aid to represent an individual person on the charges they're facing, essentially. And so a person, yes, there's two criteria that makes a person eligible for legal aid in Alberta. Number one, the charges have to be serious enough that there is a possibility of jail if they're convicted. And number two, the financial eligibility. And unfortunately, the government, through its payments to legal aid in Alberta, controls that number, so to speak, as well. And you may recall a number of years ago, we had to shame the then Minister of Justice in Alberta by saying, even people on AISH, which is our sort of program for the mentally and physically handicapped, even people who are on that program are not receiving eligibility for legal aid. And so that was quickly reversed.
The threshold was that low?
Yeah. Well, guess what? We're back down to those numbers. In some cases, those people on the handicap program are now again becoming not eligible for legal aid because the government has arbitrarily suppressed that income level, that minimum income level so low. to be eligible for legal aid. So it's become like obviously untenable.
We've got to go to break, Ian, but when I come back, I want to talk about the funding at issue here, because this is about how much money lawyers are paid for legal aid. And I want to explain, I want to get insight into how it compares province by province, how the services compare, and what the government's response has been. We'll be right back.